8-year-old Emma sat on her small bed in the tiny bedroom she now called her own. The room still smelled like fresh paint and cardboard boxes. Her new school uniform hung neatly on the wooden chair by the window. The dark blue skirt, white shirt, and red tie looked so different from what she used to wear at her old school. Tomorrow would be her very first day at Meadowbrook Primary School. Just thinking about it made her tummy feel sick with worry. Emma picked up her favorite stuffed rabbit, Mr. Buttons, and held him close to her chest. His soft brown fur always made her feel a little bit better when she was scared. What if nobody likes me? Mr. Buttons, Emma whispered into his fuzzy ear. What if I say something silly and everyone laughs? What if I get lost trying to find the bathroom? The questions kept coming, one after another, making her feel more frightened with each passing minute. She had always been the quiet girl in class, the one who preferred reading books to playing games with lots of children. Making new friends felt like the hardest thing in the whole world. At her old school in the big city, it had taken Emma almost 3 months before she felt brave enough to raise her hand in class. It took even longer before she found the courage to ask someone to play with her during break time. Now she would have to start all over again in this strange new place. Emma looked out her bedroom window at the quiet village street below. Everything here was so different from the busy city where she used to live. The houses were smaller and older. The streets were narrow and lined with tall oak trees. She could see a few shops down the road, but nothing looked familiar. Even the postman was someone she had never seen before. The move to Meadowbrook Village had happened so quickly. One day her father came home from work with sad news about losing his job at the big office building. The next week, they were packing all their belongings into boxes and loading them onto a moving truck. Her mother cried when they said goodbye to their old house, but she tried to hide her tears from Emma and James. Now her father worked at the village factory, coming home late at night with tired eyes and dirty hands. Her mother had found work at the local grocery store, but she had to start very early in the morning before Emma even woke up. Money was tight, and Emma often heard her parents talking in hushed, worried voices about bills and rent from downstairs. Emma could hear those same worried voices again tonight. Her parents were sitting at the small kitchen table, going through papers and counting coins. She caught words like electricity bill and school supplies floating up through the thin floor. It made her stomach feel even more twisted with anxiety. Emma pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms round them. She felt so small and scared. Tomorrow she would have to walk into a classroom full of strangers. She would have to find her way around a new school building. She would have to eat lunch in a cafeteria where everyone already had their own friends and their own special seats. Just then, she heard footsteps on the creaky wooden stairs. Emma quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to hide the tears that had started to fall. She did not want anyone to see her crying like a baby. Her older brother James poked his head through her bedroom doorway. At 12 years old, James was much braver than Emma could ever imagine being. He had dark hair like their father and the same green eyes as their mother. Usually, James was too busy with his own friends and activities to pay much attention to his little sister. He spent most of his time playing video games or kicking his football round in the small back garden. But tonight was different. Tonight, James noticed the way Emma was sitting all curled up on her bed. He saw her red, puffy eyes and the sad expression on her pale face. Something about the way she looked so small and frightened made his heart feel heavy. "Hey, James said softly as he stepped into her room. His voice was gentler than usual. "You worried about tomorrow?" Emma looked up at her big brother and nodded slowly. She did not trust herself to speak because she knew her voice would come out all shaky and weak. James walked over and sat down carefully on the edge of Emma's bed. The old mattress squeaked a little under his weight. He looked at his little sister for a long moment, remembering his own first day at a new school when he was younger. He remembered feeling scared and lonely too. "Tell you what," James said, surprising himself with his own words. "I'll walk you to school tomorrow morning. We can figure it out together, okay?" The offer came out of nowhere, even catching James off guard. He had never offered to help Emma with anything before, but seeing her so frightened made him want to be the kind of big brother she could count on. For the first time all evening, Emma felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. She managed to smile just a little bit, and Mr. Buttons seemed to smile too. The morning sun was just starting to peek through Emma's bedroom curtains when she woke up. Her stomach immediately felt like it was full of jumping frogs. Today was the day she had been dreading all week, her first day at Meadowbrook Primary School. Emma sat up in bed and looked at her school uniform hanging on the chair. The dark blue skirt and white shirt looked so crisp and new. She had never worn anything like it before. At her old school, children could wear whatever clothes they wanted. This uniform made everything feel even more strange and different. She got up slowly and put on the white shirt first. Then she tried on the skirt. It felt too big around her waist. Emma looked at herself in the small mirror on her dresser and frowned. She did not look like herself at all. She looked like she was playing dress-up in someone else's clothes. Emma took off the uniform and tried on a different white shirt from her closet. Maybe this one would look better. But when she put it on with the skirt, it looked exactly the same. She sighed and took everything off again. Perhaps if she wore her favorite hair ribbon, she would feel more like herself. After trying on the uniform for the third time, Emma finally decided it would have to do. She brushed her long brown hair and tied it back with a yellow ribbon that her grandmother had given her before she moved away. The ribbon was soft and silky, and it smelled faintly like her grandmother's perfume. It made Emma feel just a tiny bit braver. Just as Emma was putting her new notebooks into her backpack, she heard a gentle knock on her bedroom door. James poked his head inside and smiled at her. "Ready to go, Em?" he asked. "We have got plenty of time to walk to school, so do not worry about rushing." Emma was surprised by how patient James sounded. Usually, her big brother got annoyed if anyone took too long getting ready. He was always in a hurry to meet his friends or play football in the park. But this morning, he seemed different. He seemed to actually care about how she was feeling. They walked downstairs together and found a note from their mother on the kitchen table. She had already left for work at the grocery store, but she had written them both good luck messages and drawn little smiley faces at the bottom. She had also left out 2 pieces of toast with strawberry jam for their breakfast. Emma could only eat half of her toast because her stomach felt too nervous and fluttery. James wrapped the other half in a napkin and put it in his school bag. "You might get hungry later," he said kindly. "Sometimes when I am nervous, I get hungry at strange times." They stepped outside into the cool morning air. The village was just starting to wake up. Emma could see smoke coming from chimneys and hear the sound of cars starting up for the morning drive to work. A few neighbors were walking their dogs or collecting their morning newspapers from their front steps as they walked down the narrow village streets. James began pointing out interesting things along the way. Emma had been so worried about school that she had not really looked round their new neighborhood before. "Look at that orange cat sitting in Mrs. Peterson's window," James said, stopping and pointing up at a house with bright blue shutters. "He looks like he is wearing a fancy bow tie around his neck." Emma looked up and saw a fluffy orange cat with white markings round his chest. The white fur did look exactly like a bow tie. Despite all her worries, Emma found herself giggling at the silly sight. "His name is Marmalade," James continued. "Mrs. Peterson told me he sits in that same window every morning, watching all the children walk to school." They continued walking, and James pointed out more interesting things. He showed Emma the old stone church with its tall bell tower. He pointed out the small post office where their mother now collected their mail. He showed her the tiny library, with its red-painted door and window boxes full of bright yellow flowers. "And see that bakery over there," James said, pointing to a shop with a striped awning and the most wonderful smell coming from its open door. "That is Mrs. Miller's bakery. She makes the best chocolate biscuits in the whole village. Maybe we can get some after school if you have a good day." Emma's mouth watered at the thought of warm chocolate biscuits. She had not had any special treats since they moved to the village. The idea of something sweet and delicious after her scary first day made her feel a little bit better. As they got closer to the school, Emma could see other children walking along the streets. Some were with their parents, some with older brothers and sisters like her, and some were walking in groups with their friends. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going and what they were supposed to do. Emma's backpack felt heavier and heavier on her thin shoulders. It was not just the weight of her new books and pencils. It felt like all her worries and fears were packed inside that bag, making it harder and harder to carry. When they finally reached the school gates, Emma stopped walking completely. Her feet felt frozen to the ground. She could see children everywhere laughing and running and calling out to their friends. Everyone seemed so happy and confident. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere except her. "I cannot do this, James," Emma whispered. Emma's first day at Meadowbrook Primary School started badly and only got worse as the hours passed, after James had helped her walk through the school gates that morning. Emma thought maybe everything would be okay, but she was very wrong. The first problem happened during second period when Mrs. Davies, a new teacher, asked Emma to go to the library to collect some books for the class. Emma nodded and smiled, trying to look confident, but as soon as she stepped out of the classroom, she realized she had no idea where the library was. Emma wandered down one hallway, then another, looking for signs that might point her in the right direction. The school was much bigger than her old one, with long corridors that all looked exactly the same. She passed the music room, the art room, and several other classrooms, but no library. After walking round for what felt like forever, Emma finally found a helpful teacher who pointed her toward the right hallway. By the time she reached the library and collected the books Mrs. Davies had requested, she was already 5 minutes late getting back to class. When Emma pushed open the classroom door, every single child turned to stare at her. 28 pairs of eyes watched as she walked nervously to the front of the room to give the books to Mrs. Davies. Emma's face turned bright red, and she could feel her hands shaking as she placed the books on the teacher's desk. "Thank you, Emma," Mrs. Davies said kindly. "Please take your seat." Emma hurried to her desk in the back row. Keeping her head down, she could hear some of the children whispering to each other, and she was sure they were talking about how she had gotten lost on her very first day. When lunchtime arrived, Emma hoped things would get better. She collected her lunch tray from the cafeteria and looked round the big dining hall for somewhere to sit. All the tables seemed to be full of children who already knew each other well. They were laughing and sharing stories about their summer holidays and their weekend adventures. Emma found an empty table in the corner and sat down by herself. She opened her lunchbox and tried to eat her sandwich, but it tasted like cardboard in her mouth. At the table next to her, a group of girls were giggling about something funny that had happened in their math class. Emma wished she could join their conversation, but she did not know what to say. She spent the entire lunch period sitting alone, watching other children have fun together. Some kids traded parts of their lunches with each other. Others played hand games while they ate. Everyone seemed to have a best friend or a special group where they belonged. Everyone except Emma. After lunch, Emma walked outside to the playground. For a recess time, she stood by the school building and watched the other children run around and play games. A group of boys were kicking a football back and forth. Some younger children were playing tag near the swings, and by the far fence, a group of girls about Emma's age were taking turns jumping rope. Emma loved jumping rope. At her old school, she had been quite good at it. She knew lots of different rhymes and could even do some fancy moves like crossing her arms while she jumped. Watching the girls play made her heart feel hopeful. For the first time all day. Emma took a few steps closer to the group of girls. Then she stopped and watched some more. She wanted so badly to ask if she could join in, but the words felt stuck in her throat. What if they said no? What if they thought she was not good enough to play with them? Emma took another step closer, then another. But just as she was about to open her mouth to speak, her courage completely disappeared. Her feet felt frozen to the ground. Her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone might be able to hear it. Instead of asking to play, Emma turned round and walked to an empty bench near the school doors. She sat down and watched the rope-jumping girls from a distance, feeling more lonely than she had ever felt in her entire life. The worst part of the day happened during art class in the afternoon. Mrs. Thompson, the art teacher, had given each child a sheet of paper and asked them to paint a picture of their favorite place. Emma decided to paint the little garden behind her old house, where she used to help her grandmother plant flowers. Emma was carefully painting some yellow daisies when she reached across the table for a different paintbrush as she stretched her arm. Her elbow knocked into a glass jar full of dirty paint water. The jar tipped over and spilled murky brown water all across her painting and onto the desk. The water soaked through her artwork completely, turning her bright yellow daisies into a muddy mess. It dripped off the table and onto the floor, making a small puddle by her feet. Several children at nearby tables started to laugh. Emma heard one boy say something about the new girl making a mess. Another girl giggled and pointed at Emma's ruined painting. Emma's cheeks burned bright red with embarrassment. She felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she blinked hard to keep them from falling. "It is okay, dear," said Mrs. Thompson gently as she hurried over with paper towels. "Accidents happen to everyone. Do not worry about it at all." But Emma did worry about it. She worried that everyone would remember her as the clumsy new girl who spilled paint water on her first day. James kept his promise to Emma. Every single morning for the next 3 weeks, he woke up early and walked his little sister to school, even when it was raining and he had to carry an umbrella. Even when his friends teased him about babying his sister. Even when he really wanted to sleep in on the days when he felt tired. Each morning, as they walked through the quiet village streets, James taught Emma something new about being brave. He had never thought of himself as particularly wise or helpful, but seeing Emma's scared face every day made him want to be the best big brother he could possibly be. When you walk into a room, hold your head up high, James said one Tuesday morning as they passed the bakery. The smell of fresh bread made both their stomachs rumble. "Do not look down at your shoes. Look round for someone who seems kind and give them a smile." Emma listened carefully to everything James told her. She trusted her big brother more than anyone else in the world. If James thought she could be brave, maybe it was actually possible. But what if they do not smile back? Emma asked, kicking a small pebble along the sidewalk. What if they think I am weird for smiling at them? James thought about this question for a moment. Then they are probably having a bad day, and your smile might make them feel a little bit better. You never know when someone needs a friend. Another morning, as they watched a lonely-looking boy sitting by himself on the school steps, James shared another piece of advice. If someone is sitting alone, maybe they are feeling exactly like you did on your first day. He said gently, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is just say hello and ask if they are okay. Emma looked at the boy with messy brown hair who was reading a book all by himself. She remembered how terrible it felt to sit alone during lunch that first day. Maybe this boy felt just as lonely as she had. But the most helpful thing James did was help Emma practice talking to other children every evening after dinner. They would go up to Emma's bedroom and stand in front of the small mirror on her dresser. Pretend I am a new person you want to meet, James would say. What would you say to me? At first, Emma could barely whisper the words, Hi, I am Emma. She would say so quietly that James had to lean closer to hear her. Would you like to play with me? Louder. James would encourage her. Say it like you really mean it. Day after day, they practiced in front of that mirror. James would pretend to be different types of children. Sometimes he would act shy like Emma. Other times he would pretend to be outgoing and friendly. He even pretended to be a bit mean once, so Emma could practice what to do if someone was not nice to her. Slowly, very slowly, Emma's voice began to get stronger. The words did not stick in her throat quite so much. She began to believe that maybe, just maybe, other children might actually want to be her friend. The changes at school were tiny at first, so small that Emma almost did not notice them herself. During math class one Wednesday, she accidentally made eye contact with a girl named Lucy who sat 2 rows ahead of her. Instead of looking away quickly like she usually did, Emma managed a small smile. To her surprise, Lucy smiled back. A few days later, during science class, Mrs. Davies asked a question about butterflies. Emma knew the answer because she had read lots of books about insects at her old school for the first time since arriving at Meadowbrook Primary. Emma slowly raised her hand. Yes, Emma, Mrs. Davies said, looking pleased that the quiet new girl was finally participating. Butterflies taste with their feet. Emma said clearly, they land on flowers and can tell if the flower has the kind of nectar they like. Several children turned round to look at Emma with interest. She had said something smart and interesting, and no one was laughing at her. Another small victory came when a boy named Oliver accidentally dropped all his books in the hallway. Papers scattered everywhere, and other children walked round the mess without stopping to help. But Emma remembered what James had taught her about kindness. She knelt down and helped Oliver gather up his notebooks and pencils. Thank you, Oliver said gratefully. That was really nice of you. Emma felt warm and proud inside. Being kind felt much better than being invisible. The biggest change came after 2 weeks of James walking Emma to school every day. Emma came running out of the school gates with the most excited expression James had ever seen on her face. James, James, she called out, practically bouncing up and down. You will never guess what happened today. James grinned at his sister's enthusiasm. Tell me everything, Em. Lucy asked me to sit with her at lunch tomorrow. She said she likes the hair ribbon I wear. And she wants to hear about the books I like to read. And then Oliver came over and showed me his whole collection of football cards. He has more than 50 different ones. James felt so proud of his little sister that he thought his chest might burst. His smile was bigger than any trophy he had ever won playing football with his friends. See, Em, he said, reaching out to ruffle her hair. You were brave all along. You just needed to believe it. Walking home that day, Emma realized something very important. Courage was not about never feeling scared. It was about feeling scared but choosing to do kind things anyway. 2 months had passed since Emma's first terrifying day at Meadowbrook Primary School. The scared little girl who used to hide behind her stuffed rabbit was almost gone completely. In her place was a confident young girl who had found her place in the world. Emma now had real friends at school. Lucy had become her very best friend, and they sat together at lunch every single day. They shared their sandwiches and told each other stories about their favorite books. Oliver had also become a good friend. He taught Emma all about football cards, and she taught him about the different types of butterflies she had read about. Emma had even made friends with some other children in her class. There was quiet Sophie, who loved to draw pictures of horses. There was funny Marcus, who could make anyone laugh with his silly jokes. And there was kind Sarah, who always shared her colored pencils during art class. The biggest surprise of all was that Emma had joined the school choir. Mrs. Patterson, the music teacher, had heard Emma singing softly to herself during recess one day. She had such a sweet, clear voice that Mrs. Patterson asked if she would like to join the other children who sang together twice a week. At first, Emma had been too nervous to sing in front of other people, but she remembered all the lessons James had taught her about being brave. She took a deep breath, held her head up high, and said yes to Mrs. Patterson's invitation. Now Emma loved choir more than almost anything else at school. She had discovered that singing made her feel happy and confident in a way she had never experienced before. When she sang with the other children, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere special. James still walked Emma to school most mornings, even though she no longer needed his help to feel brave. They both enjoyed their quiet talks as they strolled through the village streets. James would tell Emma about his friends and his football games, and Emma would share stories about her new adventures at school. But on this particular Wednesday morning, something was different about James. Emma noticed it right away. Her big brother was unusually quiet as they walked past the bakery and the post office. He kept looking at his watch every few minutes and taking deep breaths like he was trying to calm himself down. "What is wrong, James?" Emma asked as they turned the corner toward the school. "You seem worried about something." James stopped walking and ran his hand through his dark hair. This was something he always did when he felt nervous or upset about something. "I have to give a presentation to my whole class today," James admitted, his voice sounding smaller than usual. "It is for our environmental science project. I choose to talk about protecting wildlife, and I have been working on it for weeks." Emma looked at her big brother with surprise. James had always seemed so confident and brave to her. She had never seen him look scared about anything before. "But that sounds really interesting, James," Emma said encouragingly. "You know so much about animals and nature. I bet your presentation will be wonderful." James shook his head and looked down at his shoes. "I have never been good at speaking in front of people, Em. When I have to stand up in front of everyone, my hands shake and my voice gets all wobbly. I am really scared that I will mess up and everyone will think I am stupid." Emma felt her heart fill with love and concern for her big brother. For 2 whole months, James had been the one helping her feel brave and confident. He had taught her how to hold her head up high and how to smile at other people. He had practiced with her in front of the mirror until she found her voice. Now it was her turn to help him. Emma stopped walking completely and took James's hand in both of hers, exactly the same way he had done for her on that first frightening day of school. "Remember what you taught me," Emma said softly, looking directly into James's worried green eyes. Every brave person was once scared, but they took one step anyway. James looked down at his little sister and felt a warm feeling spread through his chest. Here was Emma, who had been too frightened to speak to anyone just 2 months ago, now trying to give him courage. He squeezed her small hand gently. "You are right, Em," James said quietly. "But what if I forget what I wanted to say? What if my voice comes out all squeaky?" Emma smiled at her brother with all the wisdom she had learned from him. "Then you take a deep breath and remember that everyone in your class wants you to do well. They are not your enemies, James. They are your friends." When they reached the school gates, Emma did something that surprised both of them. Instead of going straight to her own classroom like she usually did, she walked James all the way to his classroom door. "Just one step, James," Emma whispered, repeating the same words he had said to her so many times. "Then another step, and remember, I will be right here waiting for you when school ends, just like you waited for me." James felt his fear beginning to melt away as he looked at his brave little sister. "Thank you, Em. I do not know what I would do without you." All day long, Emma thought about James and his presentation. During math class, she found herself hoping he was doing well. During lunch with Lucy, she explained why she seemed a bit distracted. During art class, she painted a picture of a butterfly and thought about how proud she was of her big brother for being brave. When the final school bell rang that afternoon, Emma hurried to the school gates to wait for James. She wanted to be there for him just like he had always been there for her.